everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Autumn, and I'm the POTSie Mermaid. Why the POTSie Mermaid, you ask? Well, sit down, buckle up, grab your bowl of popcorn, get comfy, because I'm fixing to tell you my pot story. It all started March 25th. I woke up like every other morning. I have two younger sisters, and both of them are working. I worked as a lab technician. I ran my own lab single-handedly for the first year of the pandemic. I learned really quickly that it was much more of a job than a career for me. So I decided to step back, and I was actually signed up for, believe it or not, mortician school. I was to be going to school down in South Georgia, which would probably be about an hour and 45-minute drive from here. But I was able to do all my regular classes online and everything, so I was prepping and getting ready for that. I was really excited, you know. I went to school to be a lab technician. I worked as a lab technician for 10 years, and to do this career move was something very big for me. So I was currently not working. I woke up at 7:30 to go take my sister to work. I went and took her to work and came back home. One of the things I struggle with is I do have gastrointestinal issues. So I have I have irritable bowel syndrome and chronic pain. Now keep in mind, I was very stressed. I quit my job and everything fell on my husband, which I'm so grateful for. But everything fell on his hands, and it just wasn't fair. So I was really stressed out, but still excited to start my new journey. But stress is not good for anybody who has any gastrointestinal issues. And I'm sure if you have it, or if you know someone that you have it, can advocate for that. Stress does not help. Stress is a massive flare-up. It could debilitate you. So part of my routine was I would take my sisters to work, get home, start my day. Especially with some coffee, some meditating, getting your mind right. Those were one of my favorite things to do. Come March 25th, after I took my sister to work, it started up again. I was in the bathroom every day, every single day, for hours at least. I'd be able to finally get out of there by lunchtime, and after finishing my lunch, I'd end up right back into the bathroom. So you can say my IBS was definitely out of control. While in the bathroom, I started to feel like I was going to pass out. It was something that once it came over me, I was terrified. It hit out of nowhere, and probably about 2 weeks before, I ended up actually passing out on the toilet. Embarrassing, yeah. But it is what it is. It's my life. IBS, being on the toilet, it all started in high school and got worse from there. And I have both types IBS, so my doctor had told me there's nothing he can do for me. Either taking medicine for IBS-C or IBS-D, they're going to cancel each other out. And it can cause me more harm than actually helping me. So it had been 2 weeks since I had passed out on the toilet, and it was happening again. Well, this time I didn't pass out, but I had the feeling like it is coming. I'm not going to make it. I shouted for help. Ever since the pandemic started, my dad has been working for home. So I was very lucky that when I shouted for help, my dad came running in. My husband and I, we do live at home with my parents. Senior year of high school, he had his first seizure on January 21st of 2012. 2 years later, on the exact same date, he had his second seizure, legally making him an epileptic. So he just now got his life back. In 2019, he finally got his life back. They figured out what kind of epilepsy he had, and he was able to be treated for it and actually able to start working. And he had not held a job since he was diagnosed with epilepsy in 2014, and that was the last time he worked. So he just started working again. So that's why we live here with my parents. It wasn't safe for him to be on his own. He was having seizures uncontrollably. So the safest thing was for us to stay home. I was lucky enough that when I felt this impending doom wash over me, my dad was here. I shouted for him, and he came into my room, and I just come out of my bathroom, fell into bed, and said, "Dad, I'm fixing to pass out. Something is wrong. My heart, my chest, I feel it. I feel something is wrong with me." And he told me, just lay down, let it, if you're gonna pass out, just pass out. Just let it pass, let it ride. You can get back up and do okay. Well, no. I felt like my heart was going 90 to nothing, like my heart was beating out of my chest. I felt like at any moment, my heart is literally going to beat through my chest, all while feeling like I'm fixing to pass out. I am not the kind of person, because I worked in healthcare and was a lab technician, to go to the doctor whenever you have issues or to go get treated or anything along those lines. I was very stubborn. You could say healthcare workers make the worst patients. I was the number one proof of that. For me to have called 911 myself speaks volumes. I was laying in my bed. I couldn't look at the ceiling. I couldn't look at the wall. I couldn't even look at one of my pictures on the wall to stop the dizziness, to focus on something so I don't pass out. It just wouldn't end. So I called 911 myself. While on the phone with 911, I did end up passing out. And I live literally right behind the hospital here in my town. Not even 5 minutes away. I'm right behind the hospital. It took them almost 20 minutes to get here. But whatever. Once they get here, the man is asking me if I can walk out of my house to their ambulance. And I knew I wasn't going to make it. Thank goodness he was a big guy, because I'm a big girl. I get up, I go to walk out of the house, and I passed out in his arms. He was able to carry me outside to the gurney, and they were able to load me up. Now, my first time going to the hospital, they did not really help at all. Unfortunately, they saw cannabis in my system and turned me away. They said, "You have cannabinoid emerophasis, whatever the word is." They said that was my problem. Basically, they tried to tell me that I smoked too much pot, that was my problem, and to quit smoking pot. That day I did not smoke any cannabis. I hadn't smoked cannabis since the night before, and I had been smoking cannabis for about 2 years at that point, so I knew that wasn't my issue. This smoking cannabis had never done this to me, never given me diarrhea, never made me pass out, never made me tachycardic, it never made me dizzy, never did all of those things, but actually help with my issues, not make it worse. So I knew something was wrong. They didn't even roll me out in a wheelchair. They made me walk out from my ER room, and that was it. Well, the next day, I felt the same exact way. I couldn't even sit up out of bed. I tried, and the same thing happened all over again. I was dizzy. I couldn't focus on anything in the room. I couldn't even get out of bed. To pick myself up was so hard to do. I just ended up laying back. There was no way I was going to get up out of bed. And again, I knew something was wrong. God, my heart was racing. My stomach was hurting and turning because I was dizzy. Everything was spinning. And I felt like I was zooming out. Like at any moment, I'm going to pass out. So I told my dad, I said, "Dad, I have to go back to the hospital. Something is wrong. I need help. My heart, I can't take this feeling in my heart. Please just take me to the hospital." So my dad took me back to the hospital. Same thing, sat there for hours and was told the same thing, that I had cannabinoid emesis syndrome, and to go home and to lay off the cannabis. At this point, I hadn't smoked cannabis in coming close to 48 hours. So I knew this was not the issue. I knew that something in my heart was wrong. That's the only way I could keep explaining it. Something in my heart is wrong, and it's making me nauseous, it's making me dizzy, and it's making me want to pass out. But they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to listen to me. So March 25th was a Friday. I went to the hospital that day. The next day, Saturday, I went to the hospital then as well. When they didn't help me, that Sunday I stayed home because there was no sense in going back to the hospital to get another medical bill. That Monday, I went to my doctor. At first, my doctor thought it was vertigo. I knew, thank God, some sort of help. Oh, I can finally start to get back to normal again. Because he asked me if I did certain motions, if it would affect it. And it's true, it did. If I turned my head a certain way, things would start to spin more. If I turned my head another certain way, it made me even more nauseous. I was just really grateful that finally someone had listened, and I'm finally fixing to get some help. So he gave me Midodrine to take. I took that for 2 weeks. Going on 3 weeks, I still felt the same. I could not get out of bed. I could barely sit up without being nauseous or dizzy or wanting to pass out. That's sitting up in bed. I did not step 1 foot out of my bed unless I had to go to the bathroom. And that was with the help of my husband. I knew something was wrong. I knew that this couldn't be vertigo. My heart just kept racing and racing. The anxiety that came along with it. I mean, I have asthma as well, so I was really scared that this is going to cause me to have an asthma attack, that there was something else wrong because I was not getting any better. I went back to the doctor and they tested me for everything under the sun. They thought it could have been my thyroid, Hashimoto's disease, some kind of vitamin or some kind of metabolic intolerance that was going on. Once my blood work all came back fine, that's when they said, okay, it's got to be something else. So my doctor made me sit down and he listened to my heart when I stood back up, and he heard how it started to race the minute I stood. It was so hard to even walk into the doctor's office to keep going back for these appointments. But I had to do something because at this point, there was no such thing as getting up and living life anymore. My life was stuck in my bed. The only thing I could do is watch TV. I had to have it dark in the room. No light coming through my windows. I couldn't even have the TV up loud or on bright. I was miserable. I was literally just a lifeless person laying in their bed. But I knew I needed to push through because something was wrong with my heart. I felt it. I knew it. Every time it beat, it was erratic. I really thought I was dying. No one was listening to me. So every trip I made to the hospital, I really thought I was dying. My doctor did the test where I sat down and I stood up, and I sat down and I stood up. And he said, you know, this may be POTS. I'm going to refer you to a cardiologist where they can do further testing. But I do think that this is POTS. Don't worry. We believe you. We hear you. And you're not alone. Call us if this continues, if you can't deal until you see the cardiologist. And he wrote me out a prescription for a 0.5 milligram Xanax. And I started taking that ASAP to see if that would help my heart. It did not help my heart. I still had to be stuck in the bed. I still had to keep a trash can by my side. At this point, I quit drinking soda, which I wasn't that bad. I had 2 Cokes a day. I have a Coke problem. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But really, I was drinking a lot of water. That's what I stuck to. Water on Dancentron, because I was severely nauseous all the time. And darkness. Sometimes it was hard to look at the TV. Sometimes it was just hard to focus. It was hard just being awake. So I finally went to this cardiologist that was here in town, and he wanted to do a heart monitor test on me, and an echocardiogram, and a tilt table test. So I was scheduled for the 7-day heart monitor and my echocardiogram. I did my 7-day heart monitor first. While doing my 7-day heart monitor, they also did the echocardiogram. He didn't even get around to the tilt table test. When I went back for my checkup for my 7-day heart monitor and my EKG and ECG, they told me, you have POTS. We don't even have to do a tilt table test. But unfortunately, that doctor did not specialize in POTS. He mainly specialized in irregular heart rhythms and functions of the heart. At this point, the cardiologist I was seeing referred me to another cardiologist that specialized in POTS. He prescribed me midodrine if my SBP was to drop below 100, which sometimes, normally, before POTS, I was in that range, so it didn't affect me none. And when it did drop below 100, it still didn't really affect me none. It was when my heart rate was sky high that was affecting me. So midodrine was just a waste. I didn't have to take it, so it was just taking Xanax while waiting to see this new POTS specialist. I finally go to him, and the number one thing he does is schedule me for my tilt table test, also while listening to me just cry to him. At this point, my first appointment to see him was in June, the first week of June. Keep in mind, all this started March 25th. So I'd spent this entire time bedridden. I had gone from being a person who, I was matriarch of my house. I cooked, I cleaned, I did dinners. I made sure everybody's clothes was done. I kept the house clean. My parents, I'm not gonna say they're old, but they had me when they were 40. So, they're not all that young. I just kind of took over making sure that the house was okay when I quit my job. That was my job. Taking care of everyone here. Running the house, making sure everything was smooth, keeping it clean, cooking dinners, making all the meals, making sure everything was gravy. I went from being everybody's everything to this lifeless person laying in my bed for months. And I would cry and cry and cry to my husband, saying, Josh, I feel like I've died, and now I have to mourn this person while still being alive. I went from running this house to walking every day, kayaking, traveling. Oh God, did I love to travel and adventure. That was my number one favorite thing to do. My husband and I, we were always finding places to go on the weekends. So I went from this full of life gypsy soul person who couldn't wait to get back into the beach and spend all day out in the sun, right there on the ocean, right there on the shore, to I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't do anything. All I could do was lay in my bed and cry and mourn for the woman I used to be. Mourn for all the trips that Josh and I didn't get to do. I became utterly depressed. I couldn't get up and do anything. I couldn't make my own meals. I could hardly shower. My husband was having to help me shower from the bed. Getting sponge baths or wash rag baths or whore baths, as some like to call it. My hair was disgustingly matted on top of my head because I couldn't wash it. I I was this lifeless blob stuck in the bed who could barely eat, barely drink, and barely function. To be a person who is constantly on the go, 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 to being bedridden, that killed me. That killed me. So, when he scheduled me for this tilt table test and he said, "This does sound like POTS," I cried in that doctor's office because finally someone listened. I was finally getting help. I couldn't wait for this tilt table test, knowing that I'm going to have to get out of my bed, go to this hospital, walk all these stairs, get to this floor, knowing that it was going to take everything in me. I did not care. I just was excited for answers, and I wanted my life back. So he scheduled it a week from that day, and I went to the hospital and I did my tilt table test. And for your tilt table test, you have to hit a certain number. Your heart rate has to go up a certain number in order for them to diagnosing you with POTS. I was borderline. I was literally 2 numbers short. I was 2 numbers off. But due to my symptoms, due to what my heart did, due to just how it was doing the tilt table test and everything, he went ahead and said, "I can go ahead and diagnose you borderline POTS. We'll go ahead and just say that you have POTS. I want you to start taking Postural once in the morning, and I want to see you back in a month and see how you're doing." I cried. I'll never forget. My husband, Josh, was sitting next to me holding my hand because I needed this. I went from being this person who was so full of life. You couldn't tell me that anything could keep me down or that anything could stop me, because nothing did. I know everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own story and everyone has taken different walks in life. And mine hasn't, been all roses and daisies either. But that's how I knew you couldn't tell me nothing could keep me down until this came along. And it totally rocked my world. From being this full of life person, this gypsy soul, this adventurer, this ray of sunshine that literally wanted to make everyone happy everywhere they went and wanted to do everything and fulfill all their dreams and cross off everything on their bucket list, to being this lifeless blob in my bed. That killed me. I still sometimes feel like I'm mourning my old self because I was diagnosed with POTS. Now you're probably wondering, yeah, but look at you. You have your makeup on and your hair has been dyed and it doesn't look like a mess anymore and you seem fine. No. Let me stop you right there. It took me probably 2 weeks to be able to get out of my bed. 2 weeks of taking Postural to get out of my bed. I no longer trusted my body to get up and function normally. Every time I stood, I questioned whether I'm going to pass out. No one's going to be around to know that I passed out. How long will I lay there for? And what if I pass out and my heart just stops? It happened to my husband. He had a seizure. His heart stopped and he turned blue. And me being lucky enough to have been in the healthcare field, I knew what to do. But that's what I was terrified of. I watched it happen to my husband, and what if this could happen to me? So I started taking pictures of my little accomplishments. My first picture I took was when I got up out of my bed and made my bed. I remember the first thing I did being up out of my bed was I changed my clothes. It was the first time in months that I changed myself by myself without my husband being there to help me, or my sisters. or my mom. I was a 28-year-old woman for the first time in months who cried because they were able to change their own clothes without their heart racing or without feeling like they were going to pass out. I was so happy I changed my clothes. I redid my nasty, disgusting bun and I changed I changed my pillowcase, my husband's pillowcase, and I made the bed. I knew I couldn't push myself, so I didn't try. I made the bed. Months and months and months of spending every single moment in this bed. From when I wake to when I sleep, I got up out of my bed and I made it. And I cried. Who cries about stupid stuff like that? Who cries about making their bed? I will tell you who. A POTSie. That is what someone with POTS is called. POTS is short for Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome. A lot of people think it is rare, and it's actually not. It's common. It's more common in women than men. Both genders do get it. It is just unknown to doctors. It is unknown because it is a form of dysautonomia. Dysautonomia is a neurological issue. So, POTS is a form of a neurological issue that physically affects your heart. But that depends on what type of POTS you have. I do not know what type of POTS I have. I'm still in the fight mode, if you will. I'm still learning how to get up and walk around and do things. I am just now able to make my own food sometimes. I live in a house that was built in the late 50s. So we do not have central heat and air. We have window units in every room. So in the kitchen, it gets extremely hot by the stove. So I cook what I can before I get too hot. That is another thing that I'm actually very sensitive to, is heat. Which totally devastated a mermaid like myself because, like I said, I am a mermaid. God gave me legs instead of a mermaid tail, and I don't understand why, because when I am at any beach, I am at home. I can sit on the shore all day. I love laying in the sun and feeling it just warming me. I can stay in the ocean all day and swim and just go about. Literally, I'm one of those weirdos. My soul is at home when I'm at the beach. Whether it's during the summertime, fall time, winter times, or springtime, it does not matter. I am at home when I am on the beach. I am at home when I am in the ocean swimming around. It's where I'm meant to be. And I have not done one thing this entire summer. I couldn't. It was way too hot. And I can barely take any heat. Since being diagnosed with POTS syndrome, my AC has stayed on 68 degrees and has not gone up any higher since. There are some days where I even have to lower it more, because one of my symptoms or side effects of POTS is temperature imbalance. My face can be on fire, but my hands and my feet will stay cold. I never experienced blood pooling. And I did not experience blood pooling for quite a while. I was diagnosed June 15th with POTS. Probably about a month after, I started experiencing blood pooling. Blood pooling is when your hands and your legs or your feet start pulling with blood because your body isn't regulating blood flow. That's one of the main things with POTS, is your autonomic system isn't communicating with your body, saying, hey, let's keep that blood flowing. Let's get that blood from the bottom half of your body back up to the top. I have been wearing compression socks since then, and I am not a socks person. Like I said, I am a mermaid. I am meant to be in sandals or flip-flops or even barefoot. I hate socks unless it's the winter time. And I hate the winter because it's cold. I'd rather be outside during the summertime. I love the summer. It's when I get to kayak. It's when I get to go to the lake. It's when I get to go to the beach. It's when I get to go outside and walk and sweat and feel good. But that didn't get to happen. That didn't get to happen because I am still fighting. I am to the point where I can last outside for about 10 minutes. Every day I am to go outside and try to spend 1 more minute in the heat. So I've made it up to 10 minutes. I started out at 1. If I can add another minute, then awesome, do it. And if I can't, go back inside and try again tomorrow. But I'm at 10 minutes. Fingers crossed. Slowly but surely, I'm getting back to be able to take the heat. The thing that I am still struggling with is listening to my body and not being mad at my body for not being able to do the things that it used to be able to do. I still struggle with how one day I was perfectly fine and the next I'm bedridden for months. Don't get me wrong, there is plenty of my fellow POTSies out there that have had it worse, who have struggled with it for years without getting a diagnosis. My heart goes out to them because I couldn't imagine. I was incredibly lifeless and depressed. And the bad thing is, I couldn't lean on anything. You know, when your heart's racing, you can't drink. I couldn't smoke cannabis anymore because out of nowhere, now it makes me tachycardic. I was a vapor, but I have no nicotine in my juice. I didn't want to deal with anything else while I thought there was an issue with my heart. So I had nothing to lean on but my husband, my parents, my siblings, my close friends, and my family. I'm still learning to try to just let it all go. I'm still learning that it's a journey. It's a process. I didn't leave the house for months, and I'm just now starting to leave my house. I don't go on walks anymore because it's too hot. There's a lot of things still that I don't know if I'll ever get back to normal. I went from my husband having to bathe me to getting a shower chair and him still having to bathe me, to finally being able to have the strength to bathe myself. So I still use my shower chair, but I wash myself, shampoo, condition, all that stuff. I do it all on my own. But being someone with POTS, aka a POTSie, like myself, like we like to call ourselves, you have to learn how to live life, but differently. So, us ladies with POTS, we do not shave in the shower. We come out, we sit on the edge of the toilet, or we sit somewhere where we can prop our leg up. Me, I sit in the bed, I put down the towel, and that's how I shave. Other women that are able to sit on the toilet and prop their leg up on the tub and shave that way. A lot of people, we use our shower chairs. I have learned that I can't really be a passenger in a car anymore. Being a passenger causes really bad motion sickness and dizziness. So anytime I'm in the car, I try to be the driver. Unless I just feel terrible and my husband absolutely has to take over. It's the only time I'm a passenger. I'm still learning my limits in the kitchen. Sometimes I get carried away and I like to cook and bake and everything else in between. I am a Spanish heritage, Mexican heritage, so I do love to cook. But sometimes I just forget that I have POTS and get too hot and get too overwhelmed. These last few months have been the hardest, but I have gotten farther along than I ever have since POTS started on March 25th. They've been the hardest because I can't just bounce right back into the person that I used to be. I have to slowly take baby steps, and that is so aggravating for someone who is constantly go, 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 do, do, do. But you live and you learn. Since this is September, people are starting to go into what they call an October slide. I'm not gonna lie, these last 2 weeks have been a little rough for me. Out of nowhere, I had felt like my heart dropped, and then that feeling came over me like I was going to pass out. So I've been dealing with that, and also flare up with my IBS as well. When POTS first started, I actually went for months without my stomach being tore up or anything. It's like I traded IBS for POTS. In August, I started to have flare-ups again of IBS. I'm still struggling with that, and that's really putting a toll on me as well. I'm having to drink a lot more water, plus adding a bunch of salt to my diet, which I kind of feel like is helping my IBS flare up. And I also drink liquid IVs. I drink anywhere from 2 to 3 liquid IVs a day, but they save me. Guys, without liquid IV, all the water I drink would literally be for nothing. Liquid IV saves me. Hands down. Best thing ever. I do keep salt by my bed. This is the life of a POTSie. Keeping salt, liquid IV, water, all on your hand. Oh, and your handy dandy blood pressure cuff. Don't know where I'd be without mine. Lets me know my heart rate, my blood pressure, and it's been a lifesaver. Being diagnosed with POTS has definitely been life-changing and an unexpected life lesson. I'm still learning that there's going to be days where I can get up and I can conquer almost anything. I mean, there was a day where I got up and I cleaned my whole house. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't vacuumed and mopped and dusted and disinfected since March, the middle of March, and here I was able to do it all again. And that helped my OCD heart so much. But then there's days where I wake up and just being able to turn the light on and keep it on is a miracle. There is still days where I get up and I function just great after I take my Pendolol. But then there's days where I am crying to my husband because I just want to get out and adventure with him again. I want to go kayaking again. I want to go hiking again. I just want to get out. That's my number one favorite thing to do with my husband, is to just get out and adventure and travel. And I still cry to him. I'll tell him I'm so sorry, and on those really, really depressing days, I tell him I understand if he wants to divorce me and find a wife who can do all those things with him and be able to have a family with him and get to do all the things I don't get to do. But he has been an amazing rock for me to lean on in times like this. I just know if it was not for Josh, my parents, my siblings, and my best friends, I would not be here today. But that is why I am here. I want to be there to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly of POTS syndrome. I want to share my journey with others. I want to share my journey with other POTSies. That even though you're stuck in your bed and you feel like this is it, this is your life now, it's not. You're going to make it out of your bed. You're going to get treatment. You're going to climb out of that depression hole that you are stuck in. I want to share my journey with you guys because someone's got to spread awareness about this. This needs to become known. This needs to become just as common as any other heart issue out there. I say heart in quotations because POTSies get it. People say it's a heart condition and it's not. This needs to be studied more. There needs to be more doctors that know about this. This needs to become a commonly known thing. We deserve a life outside of our beds. We deserve a life outside of our homes. And for those of us that can make it out of their homes, but the anxiety just gets too bad, I get it. You're not alone. And I want to be there for you because I've been where you are. I've been in the bed thinking this is all that there is to life. I've been that deep down in the darkness, beyond depressed, where no one's words broke through. You will get up. You will live. You're gonna make it. Some days you're gonna get up and you're gonna conquer everything that you want to do. And some days, just getting up and breathing was enough. But either way, you've got to have someone. You've got to have somebody to lean on. And I want to be that person for whoever is out there with POTS and thinks that they have nobody. You have me. I've been there. I know how you feel. I know how this feels. We're going to make it through. I'm going to pull you out of your dark place. We're going to get back to normal. This is why I'm doing this. I want to share my journey with other POTSies. I want us to be there for one another. I want us to encourage one another. We're going to kick POTS's ass. I know it. But until there's a cure, we just have to keep fighting. We have to raise awareness. We have to educate others. But most of all, we just got to be there for one another and just keep cheering each other on. And we're going to make it. One day, one step, one beta blocker at a time. But we're going to make it. Well, guys, that's my little story of how I ended up with POTS syndrome. And just my little glimpse into how my year has been. Some days I'm okay, I can get up and I can do things. And some days just sitting up in bed is all that I can accomplish. But I am determined to get to the POTS Center at Vanderbilt in Nashville. My primary care doctor and both of my cardiologists have said that I should get to Vanderbilt to figure out what kind of POTS I have. So I still have a very long POTS journey ahead of me. And I want you guys, my friends, my family, and my POTSies to join me on this journey. Well, guys, if you liked my video or if you are a POTSie yourself, please click like and subscribe. I want you guys to join me along, as some days I get up and I clean the house, or I repurpose furniture, or I get crafty, or those days where I'm just stuck in bed and I need to rant. Either way, I want you guys to come along with me on my journey. Help me spread awareness. and help me stay strong. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.